let's get started quickly. I'm going to share my screen. Lovely to have you all here. Let's get cracking. All right. So
what's the week's done today?
Okay, just give me a second, guys.
Shame. Wish you well.
Yeah, Dane, by the way, it's not a good thing to watch The Good Doctor just before you go into surgery.
Isn't.
I gotta give you.
All right.
Oh, you managed it.
All right, guys, let's get started so we can have a merit for Arthur being well. I'm just going to quickly recap on the Mishnah. If this one was coming down the thoroughfare with a barrel, and this one was coming towards him with his beam, and the two articles collided, and this one's jug was broken by this one's beam, he, the one with the beam, is not liable because this one has permission to walk through the public thoroughfare, and this one has permission to walk there. We did explain last time that a jug and barrel are interchangeable words because they are the same size and they're worth financially the same. Either way, if it's broken, one is liable in a case where there's liability. Okay, if the owner of the beam was first and the owner of the barrel was behind him, in other words, they weren't walking opposite each other. This is a case now of the beam guy was first and the owner of the barrel was behind him, and the one walking behind walked too fast and the barrel rammed into and was broken by the beam. The owner of the beam is not liable to pay for the barrel. That's obvious. Even if the beam caused the barrel to break, if it's because the owner of the barrel walked too fast and rammed into the beam, it's not the beam owner's fault. Next part of the Mishnah. But if the owner of the beam stopped short, causing the barrel to crash into the beam, he, the one with the beam, is liable to pay for the broken barrel. But if he had said to the owner of the barrel, stop, then he is not liable for the broken barrel, even though he acted irregularly, since he gave the one with the barrel ample warning. We did also learn there, by the way, that if he stopped to readjust his load and he wasn't just resting in the public thoroughfare, he's not liable even if he didn't give a warning, because that's a normal activity. Although it is derech eretz, even in that case where you're not liable to give a warning. But certainly if you acted irregularly by just stopping to smell the roses and relaxing, where there's speed and human traffic, you're liable if you didn't give a warning. Now, next part. If the owner of the barrel was first, this is the other way around. The barrel owner is first, not the beam owner. And the owner of the beam was behind him, and the one behind walked too fast, and the barrel was broken by the beam that rammed into it. He, the owner of the beam, is liable. That's obvious, since he should have slowed down his pace and not crashed into the one in front of him. But if the owner of the barrel stopped short, causing the beam to crash into the barrel, the owner of the beam is not liable. But if he had said to the owner of the beam, stop, and then he, the one with the beam, is liable, meaning same principle applies. If you stop suddenly and you fail to warn, then you are liable for the damage that you caused to the other person. The Mishnah concludes, and the same principles apply where this one was coming with his lamp and this one with his flax. The reason we bring this, even though it seems similar, is that it's not quite so obvious because in essence, a flax is flammable no matter what sort of size of lamp knocks into it. But it does mimic the case of the barrel or the jug because it's far more vulnerable than the lamp, because the lamp is what causes the damage and the flax is what set it alight, just like the beam causes the damage and the barrel jug is what gets damaged. In terms of who pays, the beam owner or the owner of the barrel, the jug, depends obviously on liability as stated in the above Mishnah. Fine. Now that we've done that sort of summary, I'm going to quickly go into the next part of the Gemara and tell you where we are dealing with. We actually finished that Mishnah. We're dealing with the Gemara on this Mishnah. Rabba Bar Nassan inquired of Rav Huna, if one injures his wife during marital relations, what is the law? Do we say that since he's acting with permission, he is not liable? Or do we perhaps say that he should have been more careful to avoid injuring his wife and is therefore liable? So what we're saying is this is a delicate matter in every way, is that it wants to say, a husband was in the mood, the wife was in the mood, and they decided to have intercourse. And what happens is she got injured. So we're saying, do we actually use do we actually use this Mishnah to say that there's liability, or do we use this Mishnah to say that there's no liability? Okay, so the initial proposal is as follows. When Rabbi Bar Nassan inquired of Rav Huna, he's basically saying, look, in the beginning of the Mishnah, we learned something very, very straightforward. The owner of the beam had permission to be in the public thoroughfare. The owner of the barrel, the jug, had permission to be in the public thoroughfare. If they were walking towards each other and they both got injured, they both had permission. What we're saying is here, the wife and the husband both wanted to have sexual intercourse. They were both game, as the term goes, and they were both keen on it. And therefore, they gave each other permission. It wasn't done without her permission. And therefore, has she got any claim for injury since they were both keen to have intercourse? Okay, so they want to use this first part of the Mishnah as the inquiry that Rabbi Bar Nassan had of Rav Huna. So Rav Huna replied now to Rabbi Bar Nassan, you have learned it in the Mishnah, which states that the one with the beam who collided with the one with the barrel is not liable, because this one has permission to walk through the public thoroughfare and this one has permission to walk there. Thus, we see that the one who acts in a permissible manner is not liable to pay for damages, even though he might have avoided them had he exercised greater care. Okay? So does that all make sense? It's very straightforward. Now, there's something I want you to think about as a matter of interest. It's something that I thought about. We learned in a previous Gemara, by the way, just on a side note, that you might have permission to be in the public domain, to have your animal in the public domain, but you don't have permission for your animal to injure in the public domain, even though you have your animal allowed to walk in the public domain. I'm just giving you guys a bit of food for thought here, for carrying damage, for example. Let's take something else. You're entitled to, during the winter months, open up your septic tank. Or, as Rabbi Cohen says, Igoli Gas has got municipal permission to work on the roads and fix roadworks and put in. By the way, when he said it has permission to fix roadworks, he was talking. He gave this shir, I think, a few years ago when they actually came to fix the road in South Africa. That was a marvelous time. That time has passed. But just as a matter of interest, when that time was around, we can only imagine what it was like. He doesn't have permission to injure your car. So in other words, even though they've got permission to work on sewerage, septic tanks, drain pipes, nobody has permission to work on your car, to damage your car through the public roadworks, okay? So the same thing is you've got permission to bring your ox, but it doesn't have permission to damage somebody else's ox. So I'm just sharing some ideas that even if you have permission to do something, you don't have permission to damage. Am I making sense to you guys? But it's using this particular Mishnah as an example. So Rava is questioning Rav Huna's ruling. Rava said the following Kal V'chomer would actually dictate the opposite conclusion. If in the case of a forest where this one enters his domain and this one enters his domain, the forest is as much the domain of the murderer as it is the domain of the victim. It is viewed as if the murderer is one who enters the domain of his fellow, in other words, a victim, and he is liable to exile. So what is Rava talking about here? Let me share my screen and show you what he's talking about. And this might help you out, okay? Let me just bring this particular verse in Deuteronomy, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so what's Rava bringing as a proof? All right, now I'd like Arthur to read, for instance.
Okay, for instance, a man goes with his neighbor into the grove to cut wood. As his hand swings the axe to cut down a tree, the axe head flies off the handle and strikes the other so that he dies. The man shall flee to one of these cities and live.
Okay. So now what we're dealing with in Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 5, is a case of the accidental murderer. And what we're saying here, what Rava is saying is very clear. Is he's saying, listen, it talks of a man that goes with his neighbor into a grove to cut wood. So what he's saying is, if you take a case where you've got somebody that was negligent with his axe, okay, and the handle came off and clapped somebody on the head and that person croaked. When that person died, the family is going to try and kill this individual, and he has to escape to the city of refuge. It's known as the city of refuge and live. He doesn't get the death penalty, but it's accidental, but he has to remain for the rest of his life in the city of refuge until the Kohen Gadol dies. So what is referred to here is that Rava is talking about the forest that they both inhabit. In other words, what we say here is, and one who comes with his fellow man into the forest to chop wood, and his hands swing the axe to chop the tree, and the iron flies from the wood and finds his fellow who dies, he shall flee to one of these cities and live. So an unintentional murderer is liable to exile because he should have realized that his victim might be nearby and taken precautions accordingly. So the wood chopper in the forest is like one in the victim's domain, in the sense that he should have realized that the victim might be nearby. So what he's saying is as follows. Rava said the Kol V'chomer would dictate an opposite conclusion. If in the case of a forest where this one enters his domain and this one enters his domain, the forest is as much the domain of the murderer as it is the domain of the victim, it is viewed as if the murderer is the one who enters the domain of his fellow, the victim, and is liable to exile. So what is this talking about? So he's saying, like, listen, this is analogous to the case of a husband who enters his wife's domain and he injures her. Is it not certain that he is liable to pay damages for her? So it's like saying it's like a friend that walks with his other mate into the forest, that both are walking together, and the one is sitting by next to it having a sandwich, and the other one is negligent that he never checked his axe handle and he killed his friend. So it's saying the husband knew that his wife was present and that his actions had the potential to cause an injury, and he should have been more careful to protect her from harm. So what it's saying is, this is a proof against non-liability, because basically you're saying that he should have been more careful, and here we hold a murderer, an accidental murderer, liable to have to escape to the city of refuge because they were in each other's domain, yes, but that doesn't give him permission, even if they might have been friends, to not take safety precautions. Does that make sense, guys? So it was saying that even if a husband and wife agreed to this, where the husband was in the wife's domain, she didn't give him permission to injure her. So fine. Now Rava must reconcile the conclusion he draws from the Kol V'chomer with our Mishnah that seems to indicate the opposite. Okay, so what about that the Mishnah said, because this one has permission to walk and that one has permission to walk? Doesn't the Mishnah indicate that the husband should not be liable since he's acted in a permitted manner? So what it's saying is, now if Rava's bringing this argument using accidental murderer, how does he reconcile the Mishnah that said each one has permission to walk there? And that's the reason that the Mishnah says they're not liable if they collide into each other. Okay, Rava answers, there in the case of the Mishnah, both are the same. What do we mean both are the same? It means the destructive impact of the beam and the barrel is generated by the movement of both the one with the beam and with the movement of the one with the barrel. Okay, and so because both of them contributed to the damage, they were actually walking at a pace in the opposite direction, and they both had permission to be here. But it's a slightly different case, because here in the case of the husband who injures his wife, he's the one that's doing the act. So let me just clear one thing up for you. Obviously, I don't know if they were exactly like what we do today, how do I say this in delicate language? Where the woman's on top and the woman actually, what do you call it? Um, is the one that is physically more active. Okay, we were talking generally in biblical times where there was the missionary position that was considered kosher, and it wasn't really appropriate for women to be on top, meaning that the amount of effort came from the man's side. And it's different to the case of the guy with the beam and the barrel, where they walked and they both took part in the physical activity to collide with each other. The woman here was a passive, what do you call it? She lay down and the husband did the hard work.
Participant.
Yeah, she was a passive participant, a willing participant, but a passive participant. Guys, we're going to dedicate the shiur to the, just put the name back up, Stephen, of his late mom. It's her Yahrzeit.
Yeah, it's a thanks.
So what is her name, Stephen?
Ester bat Moshe.
Okay, Ester bat Moshe. The shiur is dedicated to Ester bat Moshe. Bas Moshe, that's fine. Moshe, yeah. Ester bat Moshe. So we wish Stephen long life and may this be an aliyah for your mom's neshama. So what we're saying is, in the case of the beam and the barrel, they were both physical active participants. In this case of a husband and wife in a kosher relationship, it was frowned upon where the woman took an active on top, what do you call it, position of enthusiasm. Okay, that being the case, she never did any of the physical activity. That's what Rav is saying. So he's the one that did this destructive movement, and that's why he should be liable. Almost that. Then the Gemara asks a question. So it says, okay, if the husband is the one that's so-called doing the act, and she's not doing the act, it actually is written, and the people doing so will be cut off from amongst their people. What does this actually mean? I'm going to show it with you now. I'm going to share the screen. So if we have a look at my screen, I want you guys to read Leviticus chapter 18, verse 30. Read it, Kevin.
All who do any of those abhorrent things, such persons shall be cut off from their people.
Yes. So
you shall keep.
No. That's all I needed you to read is the top part. So what it's actually saying is, how do we see that Rava would answer the Gemara's question that in the case of any normal sexual prohibition where there's kares, and if it's done in an accidental manner, let me give you one example. Say it's one of those forbidden relationships, but they didn't realize it was a forbidden relationship. Either they never learned the halacha, or they never knew that person was in another relation, whatever the case may be, and there was no witnesses. Say it was a case of adultery, and he said to her he's not married, and she found out he is married. There are no witnesses, there's no going to be death penalty, but she's going to get kares unless she makes a full teshuvah and brings a chatas offering. So she is as liable as him. So the Gemara wants to know, how do you answer this particular biblical verse, which says, and it is an act they do together. They both do the act. So therefore, legally, she's as responsible. What are you saying in your case, that the husband does the act and she's a passive observer? In fact, if there were witnesses, they both get the death penalty if it was a prohibited sexual act, which comes to prove that the woman is an equal participant in the fact that she's spiritually obligated and legally obligated. Do you understand the Gemara's question to Rava? So how does Rava answer this? Very, very simple. It says both have pleasure from the act, but the woman is legally deemed to have committed the act as the husband in terms of consent. They both have pleasure, they both have consent. However, he's the only one that does the act physically. That's what we say in this case. Because it's missionary possession, she's a passive participant and he's doing all the physical work. And therefore, in that case, when he injures her, he's the one that injures her. So it's not a case of mutual consent. So Rava said that the husband is liable for injuring her again, and that the case of the Mishnah isn't a valid argument, because in the case of the one walking with the barrel and one with the beam, they're both doing the physical work colliding into each other, which is different to this case with the husband and wife injuring. So that's his argument, and he does not agree with Rav Huna's answer to Rava. Have I made that clear, guys?
Yep.
Okay. Now,
James,
yeah.
they're going to be calling me for surgery in a few minutes. So
Okay,
when I
Kevin, we
log
can
on-
end now. Kevin, quickly teach Arthur.
No.
We can end now. Just quickly teach Arthur.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, so on Shabbos, there are certain things which we can do, and the Shabbos is called the Day of Delight. Bekarata l'Shabbat oneg. Oneg means delight, or I think it means joy. That comes from Yeshaya. A person is granted an additional soul, the Shama, which helps glorify the mitzvah of oneg. One should enjoy one's favorite foods, wear good clothes in honor of this holy day. The Talmud explains that the day of judgment, a person's annual income is determined, excluding the amount which will be spent on Shabbos, festivals, and the tuition of Torah to children. If one spends less for any of these, one will be given less. If one spends more, one will be given more. Special reward is allocated to those who make strangers and the poor welcome at the Shabbos table. So basically, and I've heard people say this, if they like buy special things or buy very nice things like for the Shabbos meal, like a nice dessert, and they give it chashuvas, they put it aside specially, even though it's expensive, they say that money comes back to them. I've heard people say this. So, and you're honoring the day by having special things. Like I bought something nice on Shabbos. I was on my own. I had nice stuff and nice food, and you need to. It's a mitzvah to enjoy the day, and obviously enjoying the day is having nice things and wearing nice clothes and not going mad and spending thousands, but just spending maybe a little bit more than normal, or just buying decent stuff and not having like a can of tuna. Unless people are really battling, if you can buy like a nice meal or buy some nice fish to make and have a nice dessert, some nice fruit to give it honor. It's something that you don't have during the week. Keep that. If you have something, rather keep it, set it aside for Shabbos, to make it the special day, to give the day the honor, the covet. Anything to add to that?
My brother used to only drink Coca-Cola on Shabbos, and during the week he'd drink water. So he'd love his Coca-Cola and look forward to Shabbos.
Yeah.
For me,
Even that, that's something.
What I like about Shabbos, I don't have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get my son ready.
Yeah, you have rest. You're catching up on rest also. You're enjoying the day. There's no stress.
And also, the one day I allow myself to eat carbs now. Like during the week, I don't even eat carbs anymore.
And what carbs do you eat? Do you eat nice challah, nice cake? What do you buy?
Yeah, I allow myself challah. I allow myself a piece of cake if I want to.
That's good. That's it. It's exactly what it's saying. But you're eating it special. You buy, exactly. Gavin, what about you?
No. So I'm aware of the fact that it's not counted for as part of your remuneration. That's determined at Rosh Hashanah. So I go crazy. I mean, but you can't go overboard. You can't go spend $1,000 on a single person for Shabbos. I mean, Hashem's not going to give it back to you. But you spend, I don't know, $200-300, whatever, to buy some decent stuff.
You'll get it
as
back.
long as it's reasonable, you'll get it back. But you can't go crazy. I mean, if you go spend an absolute fortune, you go over the top. I'm not so sure you'll get it.
No, you're right. You're right. You don't go crazy, but you do get it back. I want to, for Stephen, just read something for his mom, because we learn Mishnah and Neshama have the same letters. So I want to read a Mishnah from Pekavot chapter 5, verse 22, Stephen, for your mom. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Whoever has the following 3 traits is among the disciples of our forefathers Abraham, and whoever has these 3 different traits is among the disciples of the wicked Balaam. Those who have a good eye, a humble spirit, and a meek soul among the disciples of our forefather Abraham. Those who have an evil eye, an arrogant spirit, and a greedy soul among the disciples of the wicked Balaam. How are the disciples of our forefather Abraham different from the disciples of the wicked Balaam? The disciples of our forefather Abraham enjoy the fruits of their good deeds in this world and inherit the world to come, as it is said, to those who love me, to inherit an everlasting possession of the world to come, and I will fill their storehouses in this world. But the disciples of the wicked Balaam inherit Hinnom and descend into the well of destruction. And it is said, and you, O God, shall lower them in the well of destruction. Men of bloodshed and deceit shall not live out half their days. But as for me, I'll trust in you. And the commentary on this states that don't worry if you see rich people being bad people being very rich, successful, and happy. They're getting paid out in this world because they're not going to appreciate the spiritual currency in the next world. And even the bad people have done some good, but they're getting paid out in this world.